Alright, it's been a while since vacation ended actually, then stuff in my computer started to break and I started to procrastinate, and before you know it's been a month. But we're back on track yet again, and for today's video I'm just going to be sharing my experience as a longtime Warframe player, which might be useful to some of you who are relatively new to the game, but even if you're more experienced, there's still a good chance I'll mention something you could rant on down in the comments. Also, if you're new around here, I post lots of Warframe content, so if you play the game, then maybe consider checking out the channel and subscribing. Just tapping that button once helps me out a lot. Okay, before we get started, let's get some disclaimers out of the way. I am not, through this video, by any means, proclaiming myself to be the wisest, most skilled player in Warframe, and that everyone should listen to me. I'm far from it. I'm just another player who's put over 4,000 hours into Warframe, which is not that much honestly, but I have learned a lot that might be useful to you guys. Now with that said, I have plenty more to learn, as Warframe is a game that is constantly changing from update to update, hotfix to hotfix, sometimes quite significantly. That's just how it is, and adapting to said changes is one of the most valuable lessons you'll learn, provided you stick around playing this game for long enough, that is, because let's face it, those of us who still play know at least one person or a friend who's given up a long time ago. So if you're someone who's just starting out in Warframe, one of the first things I tell you to do, especially if you don't ever plan on purchasing platinum with real money, is to find at least one way to trade for it that works for you. Now, I'm not saying Warframe is pay to win, it's a PvE game for the most part. It's just that stuff like boosters and weapon slots, the things that cost 20 to 30 plats, those can potentially improve your experience in Warframe significantly. Not having to constantly manage your inventory or selling and rebuilding frames or weapons means a lot more time spent on actually playing the game. If you never bought a booster, try the next time to put in a new resource like Hexanon or Lanthorns into the game. Another major point that I think a lot of players need to hear before it's too late is not getting too invested in Rivens. I know a few guys who've regretted putting in all the effort into getting their perfect roll for meta weapons, only to see it get nerfed a couple months later. And it's not like those guys weren't aware of the fact that disposition values get adjusted every few months or so. For some, it does turn into a classic case of chasing the dragon. Now, don't get me wrong, Rivens can be fun, especially for non-meta weapons. There is a form of satisfaction in building sleeper weapons, if you will, and in my opinion, Rivens are only worth delving into if you already have one for a weapon that has decent disposition, or if it costs something like 20 or 30 plat on Warframe Market. Just try not to go crazy spending hours farming for Kuva, only to roll duds. But let's say you do have a Riven for a weapon that you really like, and unfortunately after some hotfix or update, either the weapon or its Riven disposition gets nerfed to the point of destroying the fun factor for you. It's nice to rant, but ultimately, you gotta learn to adapt and move on. The game devs are constantly tweaking things for the benefit of the players, at least I'd like to think it's most of the time. Sometimes it gets ridiculous, like with the Catch Moon a while back, but what I'm trying to say is, if that favorite rifle or polearm doesn't do it anymore because of a nerf, try to take it as an opportunity to try a different weapon. Perhaps you could then enjoy building and tweaking that new one to perfection. Trust me, you'll find a lot more enjoyment in Warframe if you can learn to adapt quickly. And with how much content this game's got in its current version, I feel like if you started fresh today, it would probably take a couple of years to get through and check off everything this game has to offer. Sure, most of it is just mindless grind, but there's also new updates almost always in the works. Whatever you do though, try your best to not fall into the sinkhole of wanting to farm and obtain every bit of gear in this game. Trust me, it's an almost never-ending task that will turn into a chore. I'm kind of a lost cause because I gotta make content, but for most of you guys, games are meant to be enjoyed, so if you start hating the fact that Harrow's systems isn't dropping after the 20th run, just turn it off and walk away. Or try again later, just don't put yourself through torture, because if you burn yourself out too early in this game, you'll never get to the really awesome parts that are locked behind progression much later in the game. There's also a good chance that if you stick with Warframe for long enough, you'll end up making a couple of friends along the way. Perhaps enough to start a clan, maybe even decide to create a Discord server or a YouTube channel dedicated to sharing all that you've learned about the game. And yeah, that may sound corny or cringe, but I've met absolutely wonderful people of the type who I probably would have never met if I had not installed this thing years ago. Some of you already know this. Games tend to bring people of the same likes and interests together. Most if not all other hobbies do for that matter, but I hope you get my point. The best thing that could happen is you meet the kind of people who won't even mind reinstalling Warframe just to help you farm for that stupid weapon part or arcane so you can make a video like this one and put it on YouTube. Thanks a lot, guys. If you had a friend or have a friend who wants to get started in Warframe, what would you tell them? Feel free to share down in the comments below. I'm curious. And if you're maybe looking for friends to play Warframe with, consider joining the Discord server. Invite link is in the description. Right, filler is done. I promise I'll get back to making guides and whatnot real soon. Thanks so much for watching though. Have a good day.